Hey everyone, if you are just joining us, this is actually the second part of a three-part series I've dubbed All Manual All the Time. So grab your DSLR cameras, you know, the one with all those crazy buttons, and pick it up because today we are going to learn shutter speed. But first, how about a little intro? Hey everyone, welcome to Lessons with Lo. This is Lauren of Lauren Elise Photography, or better known to my friends as Lo. This is an educational series for everyone from early beginners in photography to more seasoned hobbyists and professionals. Welcome. So what is shutter speed and why does it matter? Your camera's shutter is sort of like a curtain in front of your camera sensor. It opens and closes when you click your shutter button, aka the button you push to take a picture, allowing light to pass from your lighting source to the sensor of your camera. If you remember from my tutorial on aperture, aperture is the size of the opening that light passes through, while shutter is the length of time that allows light to pass through. Depending on what settings you have on it, you can control how long the shutter stays open to let light in. If it's a particularly bright day, you don't want your shutter to stay open long at all, or your image will be overexposed. But if it's a gloomy day, you'll want it to stay open longer so your image is properly exposed. So, how is shutter speed measured? Shutter speeds are typically measured in fractions of a second. Technically, you can measure it in whole seconds, but realistically, unless you want to take pictures of the stars in pitch black and you have a tripod to keep your camera nice and stable, you will never need to learn how to use shutter speed in actual seconds. So we're going to focus on fractions of a second. For example, 1/4 equals 1/4 of a second, while 1/250 means 1/250th of a second, or 4 milliseconds, and 1/6400th of a second means, well, it's just really fast. That would be for a super bright day. Not to confuse you even more, but depending on where you're looking at the shutter speed on your camera, you might see this listed as a fraction, or you could just see it listed as the bottom number. So for example, on my tiny little display on the top of my Canon camera, it only says 6400 when it's really talking about is 1/6400th of a second. So when that number gets bigger, the shutter is actually getting faster and faster. Okay, so let's put this into real life situations. If you have set up your camera with aperture first, just like I do, meaning you've decided if it's a smaller number like f2.8 to give it that wide open watercolor background look, or if you want everything to be more crisp and in focus, so you've set it to something higher. Then you're now ready to move on to setting your shutter speed, to determining what kind of exposure you want for your image. And how do you do this? You're going to use your light meter to tell you. Your light meter can be found either on the inside of your viewfinder of your camera or on the LED screen. The way to use your light meter is to point your camera at the subject of your image and then push the shutter down halfway. The camera will tell you if your image is going to be too overexposed or underexposed by toggling to the right or the left of the center line of your light meter. Over to the right means it's overexposed, and over to the left means it's underexposed. Change your shutter speed up or down until your light meter reads near the center. That's how you know you've chosen a good shutter speed based on the lighting that you're currently in and the aperture that you've set your lens at. There is creative freedom in this. I tend to overexpose my images just slightly to give them that light and airy effect. So I change my shutter speed so that the light meter reads just to the right or overexposed, kind of like this. The last thing you need to know about shutter speed is that there is a general rule of thumb for how low you can set your shutter speed when holding your camera in your hand, based on the fact that bodies move and we just can't keep up with a really low shutter speed. You never want to use a shutter speed that is less than double the length of the lens that you are using at that time. Let me say that again. You never want to kick your shutter speed down lower than double the length of your lens. If you do this, you might find that your image is going to start to look a little bit blurry or out of focus. So let me give you an example. I typically shoot on a 50mm lens. It's kind of my bread and butter. So when I need to lower my shutter speed, I never go less than 1/100th of a second, because 50 times 2 equals 100, so that is my rule of thumb for how low I can put my shutter in low light situations. Okay, let's recap. Shutter speed is sort of like a curtain. It opens and closes to let light in from your lighting source that passes through your lens and to the sensor of your camera. You can choose to leave your shutter speed open for a longer period of time in low light situations to get as much light to the sensor of your camera as possible, or you could open and close the shutter really quickly in harsher lighting situations. And remember, the way that we determine if we need to change our shutter speed is by looking at our light meter and seeing if our image is currently underexposed or overexposed. Now you're ready to put it all together. Get your camera out and go have some fun. Play around with it. I know this will all click for you once you get behind that lens and you just start practicing. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget there are 2 more in this series which will get you fully shooting in manual mode. And of course, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to my channel.